Excuse me, I'd like a table for one, please.
The manager didn't even blink. He wrinkled his nose like something rotten just
stink.
walked through his door.
Back up. You're making my guests lose their appetite.
He waved his hand in front of his face and stepped
You look
closer.
like you crawled out of a dumpster. Homeless trash like you doesn't get to sit where real people eat. Get your filthy self out of here before I drag you out myself.
A woman nearby pinched her nose, laughing. A kid at the next table pointed his phone straight at her face, recording. The bartender shook his head and looked away. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke up. She stood there, alone against an entire room. But what nobody in that restaurant knew was that before that night was over, every single one of them would wish they could take it all back. To understand what happened that night, we need to go back to the beginning. Not to the restaurant, to the woman. Her name was Helena Norton. She woke up every morning at 5:30, not because she had to, because 22 years of grinding had wired her body that way. Her eyes opened before her alarm ever went off. Her house sat on a quiet street in Decatur, Georgia. 3 bedrooms, brick walls, a magnolia tree in the front yard. She bought it 20 years ago when she could barely make the down payment. She could afford a mansion now. She never moved. Every morning was the same.
You got
Coffee first, a simple pour-over with a ceramic filter. She liked the ritual, the slow pour, the steam curling in the early light, the smell of dark roast filling her kitchen. She sat at her table in a faded Georgia State t-shirt, reading business news on her tablet. Then she checked messages from Oliver Preston, her chief operating officer. Inventory reports, staffing updates, revenue numbers from 32 locations, 32 restaurants, all hers. Helena grew up the youngest of 6 in rural Telfair County, Georgia. Her mother cleaned motel rooms, 12 a day, hands cracked raw by Friday. Her father drove long-haul trucks until 2 herniated discs ended his career at 43. No money for college. Helena worked double shifts at a diner through high school, saved every tip in a shoebox under her bed. She earned a partial scholarship to Georgia State and worked through the rest, waiting tables, cleaning offices. After graduation, she started catering from her 1-bedroom apartment. A folding table and her mother's recipes, smothered pork chops, collard greens, sweet potato pie. 1 client became 10. 10 became 50. She opened her first restaurant in East Atlanta at 31 with $400 in savings. 22 years later, the Crestwood Dining Group operated 32 upscale casual restaurants across 4 states. Revenue last year, $180 million. She owned every share. No investors, no partners. But Helena didn't want anyone to know who she was. No photo on the company website, no interviews. She believed the food and the people should be the brand, not her face. So she did something most CEOs would never do. She visited her restaurants unannounced. Plain clothes, no makeup. She ordered from the regular menu and watched. She watched how staff treated the couple in suits versus the couple in jeans. She watched how they treated people who didn't look like they belonged. That was her test. Always. Because she knew what it felt like to be judged before you open your mouth. Which brings us to tonight. The Atlanta flagship had received 3 complaints in 2 months, all from black customers, all about the general manager, rude, dismissive, hostile. One complaint said he told a black couple they might be more comfortable somewhere else. Helena read each one twice. Then she called Oliver. "I'm going in tonight, don't tell anyone." Now let's talk about the man she was about to meet. Craig Dutton, 34, white, absolutely convinced he was the most important person in any room. He got the manager job 6 months ago, not because he earned it, but because a college buddy on the regional team pushed his name forward. Craig was good at one thing, performing. Polished emails, solid numbers, the right smile for the right people. But behind that mask was something uglier. With staff of color, he was cold, cruel, and careful. He berated a black dishwasher for looking slow. He told a Latina hostess her accent made the place sound cheap. He never put it in writing. Tonight was Friday, 7:15. The restaurant was packed. Warm light bounced off brick walls and brass fixtures. The open kitchen sizzled with butter and garlic. Jazz floated through the speakers. Among the staff was Denise Calloway, 22, black, 3 weeks on the job. She bussed tables and refilled water, trying to stay invisible. She had already seen enough to know Craig was in trouble. She kept her head down, but she noticed everything. The dining room hummed with conversation. The smell of seared steak drifted through the air. Everything whispered one message: "You've made it." Then, at 7:30, a woman in a rain jacket and sneakers walked through the front door. And nothing in this restaurant would ever be the same. The hostess saw her first. A young white woman with a blonde ponytail and a polite smile. She stood behind the wooden podium near the entrance, a tablet glowing in front of her. When Helena walked in, the hostess looked up and hesitated, just for a second. Her eyes moved from the rain jacket to the sneakers to the canvas tote bag, then back up. "Good evening, welcome to Crestwood. Do you have a reservation?" Helena shook her head. "No reservation. I was hoping you might have something available. A small table or a spot at the bar would be fine." The hostess glanced at her screen. Her finger scrolled through the list. "Let me check for you. We're pretty full tonight, but I think—" She never finished that sentence. A hand appeared on the edge of the podium, thick fingers, a silver watch. Craig Dutton stepped in from the side and positioned himself directly between Helena and the hostess. He didn't look at the hostess. He looked at Helena. His eyes moved down, then up. Slowly, like he was inspecting something that had been dragged in by the rain. "I'll handle this," he said to the hostess. His voice was flat, dismissive. The hostess pulled her hand back from the tablet and stepped aside without a word. Craig crossed his arms. He tilted his chin up slightly. That small gesture people do when they want you to know they're above you. "We're fully booked tonight," he said. "Every table, every seat, no exceptions." Helena looked past him at the dining room. She could see at least 3 empty tables, 2 near the window, 1 by the bar. White tablecloths, candles flickering, empty chairs pulled out like they were waiting for someone. "It looks like there might be a few open." "I said we're full," Craig cut her off. His jaw tightened. "You might want to try somewhere else. Something more your speed." He let that last phrase hang in the air. His speed, her speed. The meaning was clear to everyone within earshot. The hostess looked down at her shoes. A couple sitting near the entrance exchanged a glance, but said nothing. Helena didn't move. Her voice stayed level, calm, almost soft. "I don't mind waiting. I've heard wonderful things about the food here. I'd love to try it." Something shifted in Craig's face. His nostrils flared. His lips pressed into a thin line. He wasn't used to being told no. He wasn't used to people like her standing their ground in his space. And in his mind, this was his space. He took a step closer. Close enough that Helena could smell his cologne. Sharp, overpowering, like he had bathed in it. "Let me be real with you," he said, lowering his voice just enough to sound threatening. "This restaurant has standards, a dress code, a reputation. I can't seat someone who walks in off the street looking like she just crawled out of a cardboard box. You understand me?" Helena felt the heat of his breath. She didn't step back. She looked at him the way she looked at spreadsheets with bad numbers, with patience and with the quiet knowledge that corrections were coming. "I'd like to speak with your supervisor," she said. Craig laughed. Not a real laugh. A short, sharp bark of a sound that bounced off the brick walls. "My supervisor? Sweetheart, I am the supervisor. I run this place. Nobody's coming to save you." He turned his head toward the dining room and raised his voice. He wanted an audience now. He wanted everyone to see him handle the situation, to see him protect the space from this woman who dared to walk through the door looking the way she did. "Ma'am, I already told you. This isn't a soup kitchen. This isn't a shelter. We don't serve homeless trash in this restaurant." The words hit the room like a slap. The jazz kept playing, but everything else stopped. A fork froze halfway to a mouth. A wine glass paused in midair. A child at a nearby table looked up from her coloring book. The bartender stopped polishing a glass and stared. Craig wasn't done. "Look at you. Dirty jacket, filthy shoes. You stink like you haven't showered in a week. My guests are trying to enjoy a meal and you're standing here stinking up my front door." He pointed toward the exit. His finger was rigid. His arm was straight, like he was giving a command to a dog. "Get out now, before I call the police and have them drag you out of here, because I promise you, they will." He pulled his phone from his pocket, held it up, made a show of unlocking the screen. His thumb hovered over the keypad, ready to dial. Helena stood perfectly still. She looked at his phone, then at his face. Then she turned and looked at the dining room. She looked at every single person in that room. The couple near the window. The woman had her hand over her mouth, not in shock, but to hide a smirk. The man next to her shook his head slightly, like Helena was the problem, like she should have known better. A group of 4 at a center table had their phones out. One of them was already recording. Another was typing something, probably a caption. Something clever, something that would get likes. 2 women at the bar leaned toward each other, whispering. One of them laughed softly behind her wine glass. The bartender wiped the same spot on the counter over and over, staring hard at his own hands. Not one person stood up. Not one person said, "Hey, that's enough." Not one person looked at Helena like she was a human being who deserved to be treated with basic respect. The entire room had made its decision. She was the outsider. She was the disruption. She was the woman who didn't belong. Helena absorbed all of it. Every look, every whisper, every turned shoulder. She filed it all away the way she had filed away every insult, every slight, every dismissal she had ever received in her life. Quietly, carefully, completely. Then she reached into her canvas tote bag. She pulled out a small leather notebook, dark brown, worn at the edges. She opened it to a blank page. She took a pen from the side pocket and wrote something down. Craig stared at her. "What are you doing?" His voice cracked slightly, just slightly. "Are you writing about me? Who do you think you are?" Helena didn't look up. She finished writing. She closed the notebook. She placed it back in her bag. Then she looked Craig directly in the eyes. "I think you should put your phone away," she said. Her voice was quiet, steady, not a threat, not a plea, a statement of fact. Craig's face twisted. Red crept up from his collar to his jawline. His grip tightened around his phone. "That's it," he said. He turned to the hostess. "Call the police, right now. Tell them we have a trespasser who's refusing to leave and harassing our guests." The hostess froze. Her eyes darted between Craig and Helena. Her fingers trembled over the tablet. "Now!" Craig barked. The hostess picked up the phone behind the podium. Her hand was shaking. She dialed. Helena heard the faint sound of ringing on the other end. She heard the hostess's voice, small and uncertain, saying something about a disturbance at the restaurant. Helena didn't move. She stood exactly where she had been standing since she walked in the door, feet shoulder-width apart, tote bag on her shoulder, hands at her sides. She looked like the calmest person in the room, because she was. The police arrived in under 10 minutes. 2 officers walked through the front door. The first was a white man in his early 40s, broad shoulders, buzz cut. His hand rested on his belt out of habit. His name tag read, Officer Briggs. The second was a black woman, younger, maybe late 20s. Her eyes were already scanning the room before she stepped inside. Her tag read, Officer Dawson. Craig saw them and straightened his vest. He smoothed his hair. He walked toward them with his hand extended like he was greeting guests at a cocktail party. "Officers, thank you for coming so quickly. I really appreciate it." His voice had changed completely. Gone was the snarling, barking manager who had just called a woman homeless trash. In his place stood a concerned professional. Calm, reasonable, worried about the safety of his guests. "We have a situation here," Craig said. He lowered his voice to a confidential tone. "This woman walked in about 15 minutes ago. She's not a customer. She has no reservation. I asked her politely to leave, and she refused. She's been disturbing our guests and making people uncomfortable. Honestly, I think she might be mentally unstable." He leaned in closer to Officer Briggs. "Between you and me, I think she might be homeless. She smells. Her clothes are dirty. I just don't want anything to happen in here, you know?" Officer Briggs nodded slowly. He looked past Craig toward Helena, who was still standing near the hostess podium. She hadn't moved. Her hands were still at her sides. Her tote bag hung from her shoulder. She looked exactly like what she was, a woman standing quietly in a restaurant.